desert sun blazes over endless plains, and one man rides alone until he encounters a woman with fire in her eyes and a past full of loss. "Rancher, do you just want something from me like everyone else?" she demands. Who is she, and what will happen when a lone rancher meets an Apache widow who trusts no one? Stay with us as this Wild West story unfolds. Danger, courage, and an unexpected bond you'll never forget. Subscribe to Cowboy Chronicles, hit the bell, share this story, and comment below, because the frontier never forgets. The sun hung low over the rugged plains, painting the sky in streaks of blood orange and deep violet. A lone rider kicked up dust as he approached the edge of a small settlement tucked against the hills. His worn boots thudded against the stirrups, leather creaking with each movement. The rancher's eyes, sharp and wary, scanned the horizon, sensing both opportunity and danger. He had traveled many miles across unforgiving land, chasing rumors of a lost herd, but now his attention was drawn to a figure moving purposefully along the riverbank. She emerged from the shade of the cottonwoods, her steps deliberate, eyes like dark pools of suspicion and pain. The Apache widow had faced hardship the likes of which few could imagine, and her gaze pierced the rancher as if measuring every hidden motive. Her voice, low but commanding, broke the silence. "Rancher, do you just want something from me like everyone else?" The words carried the weight of distrust, accumulated over years of loss and betrayal, and they hung heavy in the warm evening air. The rancher knew she had good reason to be cautious. He slowed his horse, letting the animal graze while he studied her. "I mean no harm," he said, though the sincerity in his voice could only partially bridge the gap between them. He had learned long ago that in the West, intentions alone were never enough. Actions spoke louder, and survival often required a delicate balance between respect and necessity. He noticed the way her hands rested lightly on the bow she carried, fingers ready, a silent declaration that she was not to be trifled with. The widow's eyes softened ever so slightly, though the tension in her shoulders did not ease. "Words are cheap," she said, stepping closer, her boots leaving faint imprints in the dry soil. "Everyone comes to take, to use, to disappear when it suits them. Why should I trust you?" Her tone was not angry but wary, the kind of guardedness born from years of isolation and struggle. The rancher nodded, understanding the silent story behind her words: loss, grief, and a life forged in hardship. He dismounted slowly, boots crunching against the stones, making deliberate, no sudden movements. "I'm not like them," he replied evenly, keeping his hands visible. "I've been through my share of hardship too. Maybe we can help each other." His voice held a rough warmth, tempered by honesty, a stark contrast to the usual charm that travelers often use to manipulate or deceive. She studied him, measuring each word, each pause, as if trying to discern truth from performance. The river's gentle rush was the only sound between them for a moment, the water sparkling in the last light of day. She finally lowered her bow, not completely relaxed but willing to hear him. "Help each other," she echoed, skepticism lacing her tone. "Do you even know what that means? Out here, help comes at a cost." Her eyes flicked toward the distant hills, where shadows hinted at unseen threats, reminding him that trust was scarce and danger ever present. He gestured toward the river, the subtle gesture meant to show calm and cooperation. "I know the land," he said. "I know the risks. I've learned that working together keeps us alive longer than working alone. There are dangers out there, bandits, wild animals, even the land itself. I can help you, and maybe you can help me. That's all I ask." His tone was steady, unwavering, the kind of certainty that demanded consideration even from the most skeptical heart. The widow studied him closely, noting the weathered lines of his face, the steadiness in his eyes, the deliberate care in his movements. He was no stranger to hardship, no easy target for manipulation or theft. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she relaxed her stance, lowering her bow just enough to signal tentative openness. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "but I warn you, if you betray me, you'll wish you hadn't set foot on this land. I've survived much worse than a dishonest man's promise." Her voice carried both warning and a flicker of curiosity, a dangerous combination that made the rancher respect her even more. He nodded solemnly, acknowledging both her words and her past. "I wouldn't expect otherwise," he said. "I don't take trust lightly, and I won't waste yours." The wind picked up, rustling the branches above, as if echoing the fragile truce forming between them. For the first time in days, perhaps weeks, there was a sense that two solitary figures, hardened by loss and shaped by survival, might find common ground amid the harshness of the West. As twilight deepened, The rancher and the Apache widow set about assessing the immediate dangers surrounding her home and lands. Bandits had been known to prowl these parts, taking advantage of isolated settlements, and the widow's knowledge of the terrain was unmatched. He followed her lead, watching as she moved with practiced precision, every gesture intentional, every decision calculated. In that quiet cooperation, a fragile bond began to form, not built on words, but on action, trust earned through deeds rather than promises. Night fell, painting the world in shades of ink and shadow. Around the campfire, the rancher offered a portion of his rations, a small gesture of respect. She accepted it cautiously, never letting her guard down entirely, but the act itself spoke louder than any words. The flickering flames reflected in their eyes, illuminating the unspoken understanding growing between them. In a land where betrayal and survival were inseparable companions, this small moment of shared trust was rare and precious. The night carried both the whisper of danger and the quiet stirrings of unexpected alliance, setting the stage for the trials and revelations that would define their story together. Morning broke slowly over the desert, the horizon glowing pale gold as light spilled across the cabin and surrounding hills. Jack had slept near the edge of the property, keeping one eye on the perimeter, and the Apache widow was already tending to the livestock, her movements precise and deliberate. The events of the previous days had begun to forge a bond between them, one built on mutual respect and necessity rather than sentiment, yet even the faintest whisper of connection was undeniable. "Morning," he said, his voice low, careful not to startle her. She glanced up, her dark eyes flicking toward him with a mixture of caution and curiosity. "Morning," she replied simply, returning to her work, but allowing him the space to join without question. In silence, they moved together, checking fences, coaxing the animals towards safe grazing areas, and repairing what storms and time had broken. Words were sparse, but actions spoke volumes. By midday, the heat was oppressive, and Jack suggested they take a break near the river. She hesitated but ultimately followed, carrying a small basket of provisions she had packed. Sitting on the riverbank, they shared a quiet meal, the tension between them easing slightly. Jack noticed how her hands, though calloused from labor, moved with care and precision, a reflection of her strength and independence. "You're good at this," he said, nodding toward her handiwork. She allowed a brief smile, almost imperceptible, but it held more warmth than she intended. "I've had to be," she replied, tone flat yet laced with pride. "Life doesn't give second chances out here." Jack nodded, understanding completely. He had learned the same truth on the open range. Survival demanded resilience, ingenuity, and above all, patience. In that shared understanding, an invisible thread began to form between them. As afternoon stretched on, the sound of distant hooves reached their ears. Both stiffened, instincts honed by years of living in the wild kicking in. A group of men approached from the east, rough-looking ranchers with eyes that carried both curiosity and a hint of greed. Jack and the widow stood, back straight, ready to confront them if necessary. "Stay behind me," he whispered. She hesitated, then nodded, trusting the judgment that had already proven itself. The men stopped a short distance away, hands resting on rifle butts, eyes flicking between Jack and the widow. "Thought we'd check in," one said, voice casual but edged with threat. "Heard this land's got potential, thought we'd take a look." Jack's jaw tightened. He recognized the underlying challenge in their tone. The widow's eyes narrowed, not a flicker of fear crossing her face. "This land is mine," she said firmly. "We're not interested in outsiders poking around here." A tense silence followed, each party gauging the other. Jack's calm presence beside the widow was a silent declaration. They were not easy targets. The men hesitated, noticing the readiness and quiet confidence radiating from both figures. Words were exchanged carefully, each side testing the limits, but it quickly became clear that the widow and Jack were not to be trifled with. After a long, tense pause, the group eventually turned and rode away, their intentions thwarted by a combination of courage and strategy. That evening, as the sun sank low and shadows stretched across the desert, Jack and the widow worked to repair minor damage caused by the encounter. The trust between them had deepened, not merely from survival, but from recognizing shared values, respect, resilience, and honor in the harshest conditions. "I didn't think anyone would stand with me," she admitted quietly, voice almost lost in the evening wind. Jack glanced at her, his expression steady. "You wouldn't have to face it alone," he said simply. Weeks passed, and the bond between Jack and the widow strengthened further. They shared labor, meals, and quiet conversations under starlit skies. She told him of her past, the loss of her family, the betrayal by those she once trusted, and the lonely years that followed. Jack shared his own stories, not of loss, but of lessons learned, the kind that only life on the frontier could teach. Their interactions, though simple, became profound, a partnership forged in mutual respect rather than fleeting desire. By the time summer reached its peak, their home had transformed. Fences were rebuilt, crops flourished in carefully tended plots, and the livestock grew healthier under their combined care. Even the land itself seemed to respond to their efforts, thriving in ways it hadn't before. In quiet moments, Jack noticed how her eyes softened when she looked at him, a rare vulnerability shining through the armor of independence she had worn for so long. One evening, under sky exploding with stars, Jack approached her as she worked by the fire, tending to dinner. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice warm. "Not just the land, but everything." She paused, meeting his gaze. "It's easier with someone you can trust," she replied. Silence fell between them, filled with the quiet acknowledgement that trust had grown into something deeper, a bond neither had anticipated, but both had silently hoped for. The harsh lessons of the West had taught them that life was unpredictable and often cruel. Yet together, they had built something resilient, something worth defending. Each day became a testament to what could be achieved through cooperation, respect, and mutual courage. Their story, whispered among the few neighbors brave enough to visit, became one of quiet inspiration, the tale of a rancher and an Apache wid who refused to let suspicion and past wounds define their future. As the seasons turned, they celebrated small victories together, the first full harvest, a healthy calf born to their herd, the successful repair of a storm-damaged roof. Every challenge overcome was shared, every victory doubled by the presence of the other. In the quiet moments, Jack realized he had found something rare in the vast expanse of the desert, not just companionship, but a partner who matched his strength, challenged his assumptions, and shared in both toil and triumph. By the time the leaves began to turn with the coming fall, the Apache widow's laughter rang more freely, her eyes no longer scanning for betrayal at every shadow. And Jack, long accustomed to the solitude of the open range, had found purpose beyond survival, a life shared with someone who understood him, someone he respected and loved. Together, they had transformed the harsh wilderness into a home, a testament to resilience, courage, and the unexpected rewards of trust. In the end, the story of the rancher and the Apache widow was not one of dramatic battles or legendary feats, though those existed. It was a story of quiet heroism, of two people who chose to face the world together rather than alone. In every sunrise, in the rustle of sagebrush, and in the calm after a storm, their partnership stood as a living reminder that even in the harshest conditions, trust and respect could blossom into something enduring, beautiful, and true.